I certainly hold probably the biggest megaphone on the team when it comes to attracting, hiring, and retaining what we call early career talent, although it takes everybody. And you'd be surprised how many early career talent look at the best places to work list.
Welcome to Business Refocused, a podcast about the people, decisions, and strategies behind building a successful business. Each week, we talk with leaders and operators about what they're learning, what's working, and the challenges that come with growth. I'm Lindsay Sexton, and I'm happy to introduce you to my co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Let's get into it. Hey, Mom, how's it going?
I am having a great day. It is a Friday. The sky is blue. And as I'm looking out, there's several boats going by. So I know we are headed to the weekend and a little bit of boat time. How are you doing?
I'm good, but you're going to make the listeners so sad when it's like a rainy Tuesday morning and they're driving to work in their car, looking out their windshield at other cars commuting into work. That's so funny.
This is true. It's true. But listen, I got to be real. Like, I am on a high here because it is beautiful outside. I cannot wait to get out there. So anyway.
Well, we have a fun episode today planned. We have a friend coming on who requested to come on and interview us, which I think is a first in the Business Refocused history here. I don't think we've ever had someone else come on and ask us questions. I think we're both a little bit nervous, especially at what's going to come out of our guest's mouth. So without further ado, excited and happy to introduce you to Todd Hufford, who is the newly appointed CFO of Connor Insurance. Todd, great to have you here today.
Lindsay, Carey, you're like the local weather lady. Every time you come on, it's how's the weather? So I just know to tune into you. It may be a little delayed, but awesome to be here. Thanks for taking on the challenge of being the interviewee.
Yeah. Todd, before we jump into that, though, I have to say one of the things that struck me, many things struck me when I got to the pleasure of sitting next to you at dinner, actually, and getting to know you a little bit better. Yeah, on a boat. On a boat, which is crazy. Ironically, on a boat. Anyway, was your passion about bringing young people into this industry. And I'd love for you to just talk a little bit about how are you making that happen? How are you weaving that into your day-to-day? And what should other agents hear about that topic?
Are you sure that's what I said?
It's exactly what I thought you said.
Exactly
Yes.
what you said. Well, I think you have to go back to my high school days and even before. So I was extremely close with my grandmother. And my grandmother was born in 1901. Believe it or not.
Wow.
And so we literally could ride our bikes over the creek, through the woods to grandmother's house we go.
Love
she
it.
happened to live on the river, but we didn't cross the river, so we couldn't make that story go just like it goes. But spent a ton of time with her and actually ended up living with her during my junior and senior year of high school. She had a stroke and needed lots of care, and so my grandfather had passed away some 15 years prior. But why it starts with my grandmother is when I was with her, even before she had her stroke, I had multiple times when I would talk to her about her life in the 20s, the 1920s, her life in the 1930s, her life in the 1940s. And when you know someone intimately who lived through those time periods that seem so far away because you read them in a history book, and she could tell you that how the Depression impacted she and her family on the family farm in Flora, Indiana, and how it wasn't maybe as bad as the book said because their life didn't change a lot because they were so rural. It gave me that perspective that time goes so quick. Because here I was talking to someone who I love dearly and had a great relationship with, and to think of her as a 20-year-old in the 20s and a 30-year-old in the 30s. So that has always given me a perspective of time that it goes so fast. And so when I joined the agency in 2005 as a late 20-year-old, I took the normal path of production and handling accounts and doing those things. And I always tell people that I'm an okay agent. I might even be a good agent. I've never considered myself a great agent. And I also looked at our business. So we're third generation. My wife's grandfather started it in 1949. Her dad and his brothers took it over in the mid 70s. And then we purchased it in 2015. As you guys well know, agencies take on different personalities as the generations, if it's a family generational deal. The agency we purchased was very much what we would call a practice. The brothers had books of business and they had account managers, and there were very few other salespeople beyond them. And as you guys also well know, there is a lid to how much business, a book of business that any one person can have. And you can increase that by making a team and bringing on one or two younger producers. But if those producers are worth their salt, they eventually want to go off and maybe build their own team. And so
Sure.
from the very beginning, back in 2005, when I started in the agency, I always knew I wanted to expand beyond ourselves. And I always joked, and when I came into the agency, there were 16 or 17 people, and about 5 or 6 of those were Connors. And I would always joke in the break room with the employees, and I would say, I'm here to help everyone dilute the Connors. Bring on more people who are not Connors. And while it was a joke and sort of tongue in cheek, what it was really saying is, how do we create opportunity for others?
Love it. Love it. So how do you do that? How are you currently bringing young people into Connor Insurance? Because the reality is the Lindsays of the world have the opportunity to work with tech companies or SaaS companies, and there's this impression that there's not the same kind of opportunity in something called insurance. There's this stigma, if you will. There's also, lots of independent agents don't have fully remote jobs or don't have immediate pathway to ownership or all kinds of different things. So how are you, and I know you've got some college aged, kids of your own, like how are you connecting to that generation and showing them that this is an unbelievable opportunity that I believe it to be? I'm sure you believe it to be. What is your message to those people that you want to attract to Connor Insurance or to the industry as a whole?
I certainly hold probably the biggest megaphone on the team when it comes to attracting, hiring, and retaining what we call early career talent, although it takes everybody. And you'd be surprised how many early career talent look at the best places to work list. Now, I have my own opinion on what that racket is and how you pay to sometimes get on that list. But when you do it year after year and you move up and down the list just as time goes, it's amazing to me how many early career individuals look at that. The other thing I keep hearing a bunch is, and I just had this asked of me this week in an interview of someone who is a senior in college, they said, tell me about your training. This generation, there's go-getters in the generation, no doubt, but they are a bit risk averse and they want to sort of take a calculated risk. And a calculated risk to them is this place ready and prepared to train me? Or are they just going to throw me out and expect that I know it? There's some self-awareness with this generation that they're like, I don't know what I should know. Mm-hmm. And it's true, they don't. And we know that. All three of us know that. They don't know what they don't know, but they just have to get in and do it. I think one of the biggest detractors of agency owners not hiring early career talent and taking that risk, believe it or not, is greed. It's their EBITDA. If you are a sole owner or a significant shareholder in your agency and you're making X dollars, any new hire comes straight out of your profit. And they may have not run their business in a way to have that extra margin. And if you are tolerating lower book sizes, if you're tolerating producers that aren't selling enough anyway, if you're tolerating some extra expenses that don't belong in the business, maybe you can't afford to hire new talent. I forget the stat. It's 3 or 5% of revenue or profit, something like that, but always having some amount of dry powder being applied to new production. And we just call it investment. When I hire Lindsay and she has zero book of business, but she's in a production role and I'm giving her a base, 100% of that salary is investment. Not
Sure.
every investment that we make pays off. We're running at about a 50%. Hire 10, about 5 have made it. Okay. You tell me, Carey, Lindsay, I think that's top of the barrel in our industry. Isn't 50% kind of, everybody says that's doing pretty good?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
100%.
It's interesting, Todd. I did an interview a couple episodes back with a sales training. He's like a sales hiring consultant, and he also helps people train their salespeople. And he had some interesting things to say because he doesn't just work in the insurance industry. He works in plenty of different industries overall. But one of his main findings after working with some agents was agencies want to hire people who are already licensed. And that's not the same in other industries, right? They'll hire for talent and get you the training that you need in order to get you there. And he was like, that is completely upside down in the insurance industry. Everyone's looking for someone who's licensed rather than the best person for sales, right? So I think it's, similar to my generation being risk adverse to learn new things, right? We want the training, but the people, and it's not even my generation, it's really the generation below me, technically, I guess. But agency owners also need to be willing to go through that training process and invest in the young talent in order to get the results out of it.
It's weird to say like they have to have a license. That's the easiest part of the whole process.
It is.
I know.
It really is.
And there's so many programs out there to help you with that now. Like so many opportunities to get people licensed, I feel like today.
I think his point was they want to hire someone with experience and hope that they work in their environment rather than build them and grow them and train them in their environment, which if you think about it, that's not. My husband works in a software company. That is not what happens. They hire for the talent and they train you what you need to do for that job. And, onboarding and training is the number one thing that people want to learn from other people because they don't have it wired inside their agency. So it tracks. It makes total sense, right?
I think one or both of you like to cook. And when you're making cookies, there's a certain ratio between flour and sugar. And I've always thought about, you can't hire all early career talent. There's just, you don't have enough
That's
bandwidth.
right.
But there is some percentage. Is it 1 to 4, 1 to 5, 1 to 6, whatever it is, figure out what it is for your agency and do it consistently. Do it religiously. Have that dollar amount as one of your metrics is how much of our dollars is in investment, whether it's production investment or whether it's investment into early career talent. I've just always thought about that next generation and said, I want to be the dumbest and ugliest guy in the room. And our business today is 7x what it was when I started in 2005. Okay. And we're now 60 people. And we're on a clip of growing at about 1.5 million a year of revenue through 3 different departments: benefits, commercial, and personal property and casualty. And darn near 100% of that is through talent that has come in over the last 10 years. When we bought the agency in 2015, I was in my late 30s. And you all know WASA, weighted average shareholder age. I'm the oldest shareholder of our group. So we bought the agency and the oldest was in his, what was I, like 36 or 37? And so one thing we talked about a lot was, we may not have the best brand, we may not have the best marketing, we may not have the best salespeople, but bar none, we have more time ahead of us than anybody else. Mm-hmm. So what does that time allow us to do? That time allows us to make investments that may or may not work. And again, it goes back to greed. If you're looking and saying, I got to pay 40, 50, 60 grand to bring somebody in, and you're telling me that 50% of the time I'm going to be throwing my money away, I'm like, yes, I am. In fact, that's on a good day. You just have to have that in your budget. Otherwise, you're staring at a practice. And obviously, you have to be something that attracts people. When I came in the agency in 2005, our office looked tired. The physical plant of the office. We had wingback chairs and the couch was dated, and we had to make hundreds of thousands of dollars of upgrades over time to make the environment something that, number one, I wanted to come into, but something that somebody else wanted to come into. Yeah. And I've shared this with some people, and they say, Todd, that's a little morbid. And I say, well, just get over it. But I'm looking for pallbearers, people to carry my casket. So whether they do or don't actually carry the casket on that day, I want people on that day to lean over to their spouse and say, that guy changed the trajectory of our family's life.
Yeah.
Because it gave us flexibility. He gave me a chance. He gave me a career that I never thought I could have. He was patient with me. He was stern when I needed to be stern. All those things. He coached me into making a really awesome career, making great money that honey or buddy, my spouse, right, whether guy or girl, we've been able to buy the lake house. We've been able to send our kids to the schools we want to send them to. We've been able to take care of our parents like we never thought we could. Lindsay, take a note. We've been able to do these things. We've been able to give to charities that I've loved forever, and where I was giving $100, now I'm giving 10,000.
There's a difference, though. Never once did you say they gave me a great place to, they gave me a great place to come to work and punch a card. But if you think about it, that's what everybody wants, that you help someone achieve the best self of them, because you spend so much time at your job. It has to be more than a job, right? So yes, it's a little morbid, but when you describe it the way you describe it, that is what every employer hopes they're doing for their team. You're pushing them to be better. You're giving them opportunity. You're allowing them to challenge the status quo and actually push you to be the best leader you could be. So, I love that. Love it.
I would challenge any owner to keep good records. And here's what I mean by that. When I started growing out our personal lines team, I kind of read periodicals and looked at what was happening. And I said, all right, if a personal lines advisor could just sell $25,000 of new business premium, that would be amazing. Okay. Well, as time goes on, that 25 is well below the minimum for what we're expecting of our team today. And I didn't know the numbers, but I have the production numbers of all of our sales individuals from day one. So when Lindsay interviews, I can say, Lindsay, this is the team you're joining. This is the production they did month 1, month 2, month 3, their own month 3, right? Someone's month 1 was January of 2016. Somebody else's month 1 was February of 2019. But in their first month, they sold at least this much on average. And I'm able to draw a very clear picture and say, Lindsay, if you think with our help together we can do that, let's do it. Now, of course, we're going to give you a personality profile test, and we're going to make sure that you're hardwired by birth to do this kind of thing. And we've looked at some of your background and what you've been involved with, what your career trajectory has been. But I can show you what it looks like, and you cannot underestimate having what I call a rabbit on the team. So they don't have much of them anymore, but the old dog tracks, the Greyhound dog tracks, they had that fake rabbit going around the center that they were all chasing. Every team needs a rabbit to chase. And it can't be a rabbit of Todd or the sales manager's goal because he says it is. It's got to be somebody on the team that they can identify with and say, did you see Lindsay just put up $150,000 of personal lines premium? I can't believe it. It can be done.
Yeah, totally agree. And if you don't have a rabbit or you don't have the data, you can have all the offers in the world and have someone say, well, sure, that sounds great, but that's vaporware, or that's not something that's achievable. And therefore I'm not going to make the bet in order to go on a commission only, or go, make the commitment to say that. But if you said, not only has one person done it, but 15 people who have followed this process and our training and our whatever have been incredibly successful in this role. Now you got my attention, right? But if you don't have the data, you won't know what your agency's numbers are and you won't know how to put that together. I mean, that's a validation schedule for a producer. And again, go into a room with many agency owners and debate compensation. You'll be there for a couple of days, right? Yep. So yeah, it's all about the data. It really is.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.